Yep, I'm on fire today. I got another one that I'm gonna dive deep into because it's just to expose more of the false, not only the wounded masculinity, but the false patriarchal system that has oppressing and suppressing and teaching the matriarchal to continue to repress their emotions and to silence their inner voice. That's a part of suppressing it. And so what I want to get to, what will never be acknowledged, and I'm grateful I came across a video of a man that of a lighter shade, or he classified himself as white, to go on to say how men of that caliber or mediocrity or whatever you call it, like they know how to play the victim so well. And reason being, when I look at what upholds this patriarchal, false empowerment of patriarchal, or the distorted aspect of the father energy and mother energy, and the women who uphold that through their distortion and dysfunctionality, it brings accountability to the fact of this. When you have a system that has been in place of men who, when you look at the image of what particular man is upheld, there has not been they have had everything in their favor. And what I mean by that, there has been this superior complex to not hold them accountable for their actions, for their due diligence, for their deeds. And what people don't realize is that what they're not exempt by, just as any other man, is universal law. And this is what's coming full circle, because the women who have enabled them, who have protected their victim mentality, what that does is, when you protect their victim mentality as a lighter tone man and so forth, what this does is creates a system that not only doesn't hold them accountable, but keeps the flow of that distorted femininity, of that wounded femininity and masculinity enabled in society. So this is why the getting off scot-free, or creating systems that don't hold them accountable, or how they can do certain things and get away with certain things on a physical aspect, what it may seem. And what this does is that it doesn't just affect them. It affects the women that looks like them, that I've told y'all through generations, who, again, as much as, some people may say, certain people of lighter shade have oppressed people that are darker. Let me make this straight and get this clearly. What hasn't been said is that whatever man in position who doesn't honor the feminine archetype, or empowers it, or embodies it and respects it, will also oppress not only himself, but he will teach patterns to his sons to continue to oppress all women. It just looks different. Because to a man, let's say, that grew up in a certain area, and yeah, he may be a part of, like I said, he may be a part of certain groups and certain societies, and he has all this money and all this other stuff. But what I tell people, when you look at the rate or research on who has been more violent, who who has been more destructive, this is not about a division thing. This is about what an image or an individual who has been upheld, who represents and reflects both patriarchal and matriarchal in their family and in the collective dynamic. What it reflects, it will again enable more of oppression amongst other people. It has an effect on all. And the reason why this is so vital is that's why you see certain people, don't matter their color, don't matter nothing, they will steal. Women, even their wives, are just oppressed as a woman that is darker. How so? It's because they're still subjected to his belief system. It's just as much as he is so power driven, he doesn't like at all other women, not just his own women that he procreates with, but he doesn't like himself and anything to create a sense of anything that doesn't create a sense of power, this power dynamic or control, because that reflects his internal world. Then what ends up, you see the depths of layers I'm going with this? It's an emotional, spiritual, and physical thing as well. I go beyond the skin color because I realize again, when you go on the levels of things, it's an opportunity for women to use their voice. It's an opportunity for all women. Women who have been behind those men, whose image have also been upheld in this false sense of empowerment, who also represent what? A wounded masculinity and femininity. Because their wounded masculinity is still displayed by supporting the wounded masculinity in the men that they support, which reflects what? Their wounded femininity, which again is a lack of empathy that they not only have for themselves, but for other women. So that too makes them oppressed. That too keeps them suppressing how they really feel about themselves and the men that they're with and have been with through generations. That continues them through a cycle of repressing the shit on the important topics at hand of how other people have been treated. Oh, who else is not exempt? Other people of nationalities and creeds, there are of lighter shade who don't want to subscribe to anything indigenous or of darker shade. Because you too are a part of the great oppression and depression and suppression and repression when it comes to a collective aspect of humanity. How are you not? Just because you're not visible doesn't mean that you're invisible to the fucking karma. So again, when I looked at that, I was like, wow. So this power thing that I realized in this wounded masculinity is that it's so easily to play victim when it comes to a particular person or men. And what that does is that doesn't just affect the women, but that affects the women that look like me. Because somehow, some way, the image of that man looks like the image of another man that they so proudly and boastfully protect psychologically in religion. So they don't even realize that they're a part of being, that they're wanting to be a part of his, whatever he has built, is still enabling and energetically fueling the victim mentality. And what that does, it never enforces the part of how he needs to take accountability or face his own shit. It keeps him from facing the fact that he fails. He failed to conquer. He has failed and will continue to fail to try to control the femininity, the feminine archetype. And then imagine the people with them. Because we have a victim mentality. You don't see failure as a way or a gateway to self-improvement, self-empowerment, self-sufficiency, self-love, self-discipline. Because victim mentality only can lead you to a pattern of what? Self-destruction, though. So that explains his behavior. And the behavior of what has rippled throughout this fucking nation and nation of people. And not just only him. What about the ones who don't look like him, who also supports and enables him? His destructive behavior, who chooses not to support, who chooses not to enforce and hold him accountable so that they don't lose their sense of identity in their false empowerment. Yeah, you're not exempt either. And that's on all levels. There's leaders across the world too. There's people who call themselves leaders and people all around the world. You're not exempt as well. Because a lot of people enable that. It's just like a child. It's just like a child that doesn't feel they deserve discipline. I notice this even with the fact of how easy it is for people, because of what they've created in society, how easy they can think that they can get away with stuff. And notice how like they go on their racist rants and so forth. And I've been noticing how the energy has been holding them accountable. See, this is the shift where people feel like they can't get away with what they've done anymore, because no one can. No one, if you know anything about karma, there's no way of getting away with what you have done. I've had to go through that even with holding someone accountable. Not even holding someone accountable. I held a fucking mirror to their face. Because what happens is that outside of the adult aspect of a Caucasian man or a Caucasian woman or indigenous person, whatever it is, outside of the color, but speaking first to the Caucasian man out, y'all got to realize what you've been enabling, what you supported. See, if you keep enabling shit, people will thinking that they can go and get away with stuff. They'll keep assuming. It's just like a child that doesn't get disciplined. See, this is what's happening. See, the divine mother energy, Big Mama is holding everyone accountable. There's a force at play here. It's on the rise. That's holding every individual accountable. You can call it Judgment Day. You can call it judgment. You can call it whatever you want to call it. That's holding everyone accountable. Because what it does is forces them to divine mother and father energy. It forces people to evolve. It forces them to see themselves in the discipline. And see, that karma could backfire differently. That's why you can have someone get their ass whooped when they can think that they could say things to other people, spit on people, do certain things. And karma is different. Karma can that energy could backfire on someone completely different. And it's a lesson in all of it. So let me tell you something. There's nobody that has gotten away with nothing. Some things come teach people to soften their hearts, to open their heart, to realize it was them. It was never nobody else. Like I said, I had situations where I've had to connect with people and realize, like, I'm not okay with you saying that. Or you said this, and due to that, the consequences of that is that you no longer have access to me or connect to me or my kids or stuff like that. Because I've noticed through those situations, it's been easy for people to play victim. And when I've noticed the climate of um, in the last few hundred, probably last 100 years, when you talk about a belief systems on, like, again, there's been the energy around. I told y'all like how the wounded masculinity has been displayed, and also from that wounded masculinity, what has been allowed, or the flow of things where collectively people haven't, due to a lot of women living in fear and survival and not having their voice, feeling like their voice have been their inner voice has been silenced. This is where that fierce energy comes up now, the divine mother, that Lilith, that those feminine archetypes that ain't going for that no more. And see, what happens is when that energy rises up in certain individuals, that energy holds not only themselves accountable and protects that, but it forces other people. It comes in as an enforcer. And see, it no longer goes with the flow. It dismantles an old version or old structure and rebuilds a new one. And this is why you see a lot of people who are not entertaining or putting their energy towards lessons of people who are of a certain shade, who karmically need to learn what they've done to people, or what they've created, the karma that they've created, and how people of indigenous or certain shades are not being supportive in enabling, because people don't realize, like, a lot of you in your enabling, it ain't so much of just what you're not doing. It's also it's not so in what you've been doing, it's also what you've been not doing behind the scenes. And it's like it gets to that place, like the divine mother energy also will show you like, hey, let me handle this. And that's where, again, when you go in within yourself, it's coming to a place like, if I tell you you need a rest and you're exhausted and so forth, let mama handle this. Let this energy that you've given enough of your energy to this. Let them handle that. Let them learn their lesson. Let them bump their head. Let them see that what they're doing is affecting not only them, but everything that's connected to them. And the reason I say this is that this is what's being brought to the fucking mirror of America and the country surrounding and everywhere else, is that why people highlight the fact of what has happened, traumatically in this country, in these places, in leadership and so forth, reflects the fact of what has allowed, or what has flowed up to this point where no longer it can go on and continue. And this is a structure that has affected all of us. You realize in how you see how you have to come to awareness of self to realize, like, how have I been enabling this? What have I supported? What no longer will I support? Because some things are tricky. Some things you realize, like, you don't even realize you've been playing the game. You've been being pimped out too. Because it was something more deeper I was getting into, where that victim mentality thing is like, when I was with someone that, again, I see this comes up. It's probably come up those who have dated people or have children. They use the term interracial or some interracial, or dealing with and have dealt with people that either have had, because you can't. This is the thing that can't be ignored. If your ass in this country in the last 50 to 100 years, knowing knowing what this country was created, or in the last 100 years, like what has flowed through this country, whether unseen or not, and now that it's surfacing. If you have kids that are most likely interracial and so forth, you most likely have dealt with some type of what's the word, systemic or structural racism. Indigenous people have dealt with it, like from another perspective. But what I'm getting at is that if you have dealt with that, that shows you that you have come to a place where, what does they say? What is that shit? Something meets the road, or this is the crossroad, or this is the fork in the road, to where now you're realizing that majority of this country, the climate, in dealing with that is your children, depending on who is what, whatever nationality, whatever lighter shade or whatever, most likely you have dealt with some type of undercurrent of, against systematic racism, hidden self-hatred, and so forth, whether your mother or grandmother has said anything about it. When you're talking about false identity created around it, people who knowingly proclaim to be Native American, Siberia, like a lot of different things that are coming out, the truth about how people migrated here who were never indigenous, and then for them to just think that they have brushed over what has happened to people of indigenous heritage or culture here. These things cannot be hidden. And see, what I've noticed in that, when especially, like, let's say an indigenous person addresses this topic, people of lighter shade have had a way of allowing, if the father has intervened, and or a mother, but especially whoever represents the hierarchy, which most likely has been a patriarchal figure, they have naturally protected his image. They have naturally protected his victim mentality, because what it does is that sometimes you'll have people feel like they can say and do spew out this barrage of insults when it comes to people indigenous, never giving the credit to, or even shows the lack of empathy they have, because of generationally they have had involvement with, whether removing the removal or part of the removal of people indigenous. And this is coming full circle. So that victim naturally trying to, that man who proclaims to probably be Native or lighter shade or something, most likely will try to escape through victim mentality to feel a sense of false empowerment, because after these insults, or after what he most likely will come out, this racist tension or self-hatred that's brewing, that gives, it's like it gives them, feel like they give them ammunition to do that, to have built their family and structures until it came to you, which most likely, if it involves a man especially that is darker shade, or sometimes it can be a mother, most likely that reasoning has come to show or highlight the fact of what has not only followed their lineage or what they have been a part in, but no longer can hide. That right there is like a telltale thing of the fact of them knowingly being a part of something or involving, because when you look at the last 100 years, you cannot overlook the fact of the last 200, 300 years of what has happened to indigenous people, from other people migrating here. But the story that they were told was something completely different, or the story you were told as if they have gotten along or get along with people. But it's like, how can you subconsciously move forward? And this is the thing where they know that as it's probably like a paranoia or their fear for a lot of people to come here and that's a part of their failure that they will never acknowledge, but they don't want to accept as men that are lighter, because if they're in any way, a lighter shades, if they're in any way can't control the narrative, if they can't control, because it represents a false empowerment of this patriarchal system that reflects control, manipulation, all those things of self-hatred. If they in any way can't enforce that sense of power, then that's where the victimhood comes in. That's where it's happening right now so much in the collapse of what and how people of lighter shade have built their communities, their family structures, and so forth, and traditions. A lot of them have built it off a false sense of identity, because the reason I say that is when you look at the feminine archetype and then the abuse of power and how they came in to build their structures, you cannot ignore the fact that where there is not honor of the feminine archetype, there isn't something built upon something healthy or something honest or something true. And this is what the exposure of what you're going to see play out, collapse even more and falling on itself. And it will fall back at the hands of the very men that you call fucking forefathers, who were the abusers, and manipulative people in many ways. It's going to fall back on him, but it's going to happen through, in a way, like how energy plays. If they have a father, if they have a daughter or father or son, it's going to happen most likely from the daughter. And then and then with the son, it's going to collapse. And there's going to, depending on how they operate, you can see a lot of violence ensue because of the fact that they lack empathy. They don't have an honor for, and have never had honor through their building their corporations and business of the collective, of connecting with, women. Is building off the backs and power of that, false empowerment of that archetype. And so what ends up happening is that it collapses first with the daughter. And I've seen that happen. I see it play out, because if that daughter has the courage to break free, and most likely, let's say if she's involved with an indigenous man or a man that's darker, or let's say if she's involved with a man that doesn't reflect and is anything like the father, then this is where I've seen tactics of certain men will use, and this is where, again, being that they never built something off honoring the feminine archetype, which you see play out patriarchally, most likely what end up happening is that you will see their foundation collapse, reflecting their insecurities, their failure to uphold a false sense of power that they never were acknowledged. And this is why you see so much of what they feel that they can obtain, because their belief on how they can sustain a woman or women is this power, having to have all the power, or having to have control, or have to manipulate through whatever industry, music, media, controlling whatever they can, whether resources, this macho man mentality, this external, and that's why you can see with a lot of them, like they try to be bigger. They try to act a certain way when they're a part of certain corporations. They try to, and then their sons the same way. Oh, my dad owned this, what he'll do to you, all this threatening manner, because again, they don't know really in their household how to live amongst each other, because this reflects feminine archetype. This is why organically, when you look at the origins of things, the natural, or the beginning of the origins of what family was, began with mama and then branches out, because she is the first teacher. So with that, what ends up happening is that she her and the man mirror back things and then build things structurally. But being that we haven't lived in a society that build on things healthily, we're looking at the result of that. And being that who you've seen, who's been the reflection of men, like reflecting that image of what all men should be, this is why you see niggas trying to be like a man that organically you're not even supposed to be like, or even a representation of like. Let people raise and grow their kids their own way. But when we have tried to emulate or even try to reflect anything similar, it just reflected differently. It's a man who feels like he has to go out here and make this, again, performance energy. And then what ends up happening is that when you really look at the depths of a lot of people's family, and this is how I got the code into why I even connected with a woman, or even my lesson in connecting with a woman that is not of the same, like, you can use this term, she's just a lighter shade. So of the same, background and so forth. The divine was like, no, I want you to be able to look into the depths of why it is she displays her behavior a certain way and where she learned it from. So that the energy, the dysfunctional energy is still similarly to people in certain demographics. But what I start to realize, like this, I was like, you would think the images that you see growing up of people like a full house, that they're all happy like that. And they're not. Because I start to realize like this was a father who, when we first met, was not only intimidated, but being who I was confidently, it mirrored back all his deepest insecurities. So for me, I feel like if I had to be in his place, his sense of, for a lot of fathers, depending on if they have a lineage of self-hatred or a lineage of, just wanting their daughters just to be with men and look like them or reflect their sense of power. This is deeper to why their insecurities or their mother wounds peak into where they wanting to be in enmeshment connections or have enmeshment relationships with their daughter, even emotional incest, and even sometimes incest, because of the fact that they have had no healthy connection or even have a connection to the feminine archetype. And so the way they display their wounded masculinity from their wounded femininity is what they display in the world and on the world stage. And you see it through the way they distribute their power. Anything to oppress feminine energy, feminine archetypes. Anything also, because those who know, as a man who walks in his masculinity confidently, he knows that he first must embody the feminine archetype. But what you see displayed and what you see niggas try to be a part of is industries and be a part of certain things that reflect a man that don't even have connection to source, a man that doesn't even have a connection to his femininity. And that's why you see a lot of guys go in the direction they go, get the money or get certain things. And it's all still a form of never taking accountability, never evolving past that emotional state of immaturity. Because when I look at certain men, when I look at leadership in this country or certain people, it's not leading. It's still in that flow and following what came before them. And in any way that they can feel they have the upper hand or get the upper hand, they will display a sense of violence, force, or anything to try to suppress or oppress the femininity in men and in women. When you look at the structure that they have built or certain things, people who have ruled and that reign of terror is done, y'all have to realize, look at the structures and why you see certain people, most of certain people in places. Is because it also oppresses and suppresses the emotion in indigenous men. Because once you remove that connection from the indigenous woman to the indigenous man, and I'm going to the original archetype of feminine and masculine principles, or even just the origins of femininity. Once that, and this is why it's the curse is lifted, or the reverse of this energy, is because as people, as the emotional resonance or connection begin to reconnect that which from the healing that happens from the son to the mother, then this highlights the energy that will bring up the energy, the healing that will happen between the daughter and the son, the daughter and the father. So what ends up happening is that in an era, or there was a time where the father and the daughter, shout out to Sister Myra, the father and the daughter has had its place of the healing. Am I saying this way? She said, yeah. So now the son and mother is having the healing because the energy way it unfolds. The reason why the son and mother is so significant is because the son and mother, what's up? The son and mother is so significant because this is how you're going to be able to see why did the father now display certain energy towards the daughter that way. Because see, when the daughter didn't have protection, then it has forgotten the feminine archetype and causes the daughter to just focus more on the masculine archetype. And what it has done is created a division to where she's been more her masculinity and displaying wounded masculinity. So she has to had to protect herself early, or didn't get protected early. And so now she goes out into the world and she has to protect herself from not only herself, but from everybody else. From her mother, who did not like her, who hated her, which reflects herself. And so again, this comes from the mother smothering the son. So now that the son, which is the father, now is illuminating the fact of, I won't be like the son won't be blocked anymore. That makes sense. You can't block the sun. No matter what you do, you can't block the sun, the energy of the fire. So that fire that's rising now is also showing to the mothers who have karmically smothered their sons that you will no longer, this is where boundaries comes in. So now when those boundaries come in, she can no longer smother him, because the mother represents the water. She can no longer smother him and try to intrude or intervene in his connections, because what that does is that, let's say this son has grown into a father and now has a daughter. His daughter is going to mirror back, because she represents a mother energy. She's going to show him a part of himself that's innocent, that the parts of him that he can't hide from. She's going to mirror back like that of lunar cycles, that darkness that he refused to look within, that his mother didn't show him. So now his daughter comes along and all of this comes up like, oh my gosh, what is being revealed in me? And see, this is where the collapse of this patriarchal happens. It is happening is because a lot of those men who have daughters, and this is why right now, I forgot in cardiology, like the energy of the indigenous man is regaining his power within. And that's solely because he's choosing to face his shadow and heal. The man that is considered lighter shade is having to go through similar lessons to where it forces him it forces him to see what he has forgotten about himself. It forces him to, like if he has a daughter, it forces men that are lighter shade, if they're willing to see it, to see how they too have to heal. This is why I keep telling you, it's beyond color. Everyone has to go through a lesson. Everyone. Everyone has to go through um, a lesson. Everyone has, man, it's so much more to where, again, I'm seeing it play out to where the lighter shade men, again, their reign of power or terror is only to bring them to a place where they can see themselves. They have to see them hearts. They have to see what's been on their hands. And see, what won't be told is that this shit has happened through eons. This shit has happened through eras where indigenous man or people of darker shade have done the same thing. They've done the same thing. They too are also have been a part of oppressing darker women or indigenous women, their own women, through their religion, through whatever constructs that they've had. Patriarchally. They still do it now. That's why I keep telling y'all, who you think showed other people how to oppress and suppress and do other things? This is a systematic thing. Y'all so focus on a particular person. No, it's what's happening in certain areas like America. It's forcing, this energy is forcing people to see the fucking mirror. You either can evolve or die. It will force, if you have a father, it will force you as a man that is a lighter shade to cleanse your heart, to clean your slate, to know, to learn what you've been a part of. There's no difference in me as a darker shaded man to realize like what I've been a part of systematically, what I was enabling, what I was supporting. And for some people that can be heartbreaking because to them, sometimes their programming, they don't even realize like, dang, it don't hit people until they realize like what they were in, what they were consumed by. Like I said, how I see it play out on a deeper soul level, spiritual level, people are learning lessons in their lineage. They're learning. And the beauty of what is being recovered from that daughter is the daughter represents, she is being crowned. That is a spiritual thing. That maternal energy of the daughter is being crowned again. She is fighting for her birthright, her sovereignty, her place to have been a part of this, what Sister Myra describes as a royal energy, just being, the balancing of elemental things. It's the grounding energy. The daughter is a representation of what grounds us all. That's what has been also removed and what's being restored and replaced in this fucked up, dysfunctional ass patriarchal. Because see, the significance of the daughter being the grounded and supportive energy, daughter earth, is what most women aren't grounded in. Because when they lost sight of their inner child, the little girl, they're not grounded in their approach, in their intentions. They're not grounded in whatever they do. And when they haven't had no protection of their inner child, of that little girl, then most likely it's like a water aspect. Their emotions are everywhere. They have no sense of direction. And we all know what impulsivity does. When you don't have no control of your emotions, what you do, you end up drowning out everything that wants to grow. You end up smothering the suns. You end up drowning out everything with your emotions. You don't come with things with a grounded approach. So people of indigenous, this is what's coming down the pipeline, the beauty of all this. You're seeing what could happen if you continue to enable not only a man, but any of your sons and men who strive to go after. And you're teaching them not to have a grounded approach or stability emotionally, because that's the things where elementally this is what grounded. You have to have balance in emotion. That's what stabilizes things. And you being a teacher and him not having stability will only, through that unstableness, destroy or dismantle through his wounded masculinity, through his actions, whatever empire he chooses to build. And we all know who can appoint and anoint, or who gives that initiation first, and that's the mother. The mother gives that initiation. She grants the son the initiation, the crowning, however y'all say that shit. The feminine gives birth to that masculine energy. Not dealing with gender. This is what's happening. People are getting the mirror. People are seeing like, this is what you have done to your family. You destroyed it. That's what people of lighter shade are starting to come to the realization of, the men that they have put on the pedestal. They have enabled them. This is why your empire has been destroyed. This is what you created. This is your leadership. These are your leaders. I didn't build that. I didn't create that. You did. You gave birth to those men. Now you have to hold them accountable. Where are the mothers holding their sons accountable behind the fact of what the fuck that they have, what they've done in this world? Where are those mothers at? You too focus on being a racist. You too focus on your money. You too focus on other shit that don't even matter. But where is your accountability in your son's fucking behavior? Because guess what? Now they grow into those fathers and they teach their son to do the same thing. Because you didn't come from foundations of empathy or help. I'm telling you, I see it. I've seen it. For me to have children by a woman, of a lighter shade, or just of a woman who, who mother said that she was, who used to be at powwows and shit, having to be with indigenous people or even proclaim to be native or whatever nationality, how can I tell myself, or how having your mother or father, and this is for a lot of you, haven't actually brought to your attention of what either they were a part of or have been a part of, or their grandparents be a part of. And it shows how they have had no empathy. But then you go to school with these very indigenous people and you don't even know subconsciously you still carrying this. This is why again, y'all have created it, and it's going to collapse on the same energy you created it with. And as the world evolves past that, you will too that energy will represent itself, and you either have a chance to evolve or create more karma that won't look pretty for you. Because the world is changing, it's shifting. So for you to say you ain't your grandma, your great grandma, you are. Especially if you're not trying to bring a different perspective to life or shift or do anything differently. You are your grandma. You are your self-hating ass grandmother. You are your racist ass grandmother. You are. You are. You just hide it better. You perform better at your jobs and your positions. It's no different than me telling people of indigenous. I say it all the time. I don't have to say it from my grandma, my mama. You just like your mama. You do the same shit. You protect the predator. You protect people. You don't love yourself. I just say it in a different way, but the energy still is a distorted mother. You still displaying it in a wounded masculine way through your actions. So a lot of people ain't surprised how people are doing what they're doing. They're not surprised. That shit don't surprise me no more. You built that. So you find a solution. And for a lot of those house niggas and what's the other word they call them? What's the fucking word they call them? not sell out, but like them niggas, they know different. They know different. They will too be a part of the collapse of what those certain men who have hit in their hand, they will be a part of that collapse too. For a motherfucker not to speak on what the fuck has been going on, I mean, Brother Shabazz, Malcolm, his energy lives on. He already told they're not going, we don't even expect them to do nothing. Coons, that's what they is, coons. We don't even expect them niggas to do nothing. They're not even, what? To protect their image and their money and all this, we don't even expect them to move around. So they should also not expect a fucking seat at your table. Because as it collapses, they're going to get the sad face. They're going to be looking for some type of sympathy. Or maybe empathy. The empathy they didn't have for children or mothers that they know they could have supported. Those of you who've been a part of certain music and shit, you didn't have empathy when you was pushing that shit. You didn't have empathy for kids. You're not exempt. Performance, bravo. Now that your performance is over, you gotta pay the piper. You gotta answer too. You gotta pay your motherfucking dues. You gotta repair and rebuild or reconcile. Or will your pride let you do that? You gotta reconcile. You think those mothers forgot? I ain't gonna let them forget. Y'all pushing all that shit and all this other stuff. No. Some people come as energy, as your judgment, as your karma. Forget what? You think source of the universe ain't been looking at what you've been accumulating, all that karma, when you could have had opportunities to support and build and reconstruct and reconcile with a lot of these people, even though you know the music and what you've done has had an effect on their lineage? What makes you think that that just goes away? You just want to erase and delete it? Because even I'm not exempt. Why do you think I share my message? Even I'm not exempt. What makes you think you exempt? That's my other message for today. Peace and bliss. Shalom.